Alright, hello everyone, I'm Doug. I'm going to be focusing mainly on just social media, so it's a sort of subset of the internet and archaeology and the barriers I see with it. So first one's up, Martin might recognize this as it's off of his survey. This is a survey done a couple of months ago of sort of IT, I guess, literate archaeologists, or mainly IT archaeologists. And I was really happy when this came out because it's incredibly hard to find information on archaeologists and social media. And you'll actually notice, looking at these charts, that social media actually does fairly poorly among archaeologists. Surprisingly, Wikipedia, for as much as people talk bad about it, does incredibly well. Flickr does really well. Everyone sees a use for that. Social media such as your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Twitter and stuff, for the most part, a little over half just see no use or limited use for social media in archaeology. And so I'm going to talk a bit about why that sort of is. So one thing is social media is not free. All the platforms are free. You can go on Twitter and sign up. You can go to Facebook and sign up for free. It doesn't cost you up front, but what it does cost you is time. And time costs you money. And basically social media actually equals money. You just don't do it because it's not coming out of your account. You're not having to hand over a pound every time you use it, but it's costing you so much time. And so, again, it's very hard to get numbers on social media and archaeology. So this is actually a survey of marketing analysts. It's about 3,000 of them. And so it's the best market to get on social media. But you actually find that more than a third of people who are trying to use social media use it more than 11 hours a week professionally. This is professionally for their jobs. And that time is going to increase the more you use social media. For everyone who would just start out using social media in this survey, probably about 2/3 of them use it 1 to 5 hours. That almost completely switches by the time you've been using social media for 3 years, at which point you're spending at least 16 hours or more using social media each week. And these are people who are trying to use social media to market. And you'll actually realize that even people who are using this as marketing, who are trying to make a living off of social media, most of them found that they couldn't actually convert social media into money. So that tells you a lot when people are trying to make a living off of it, and most of them actually don't think they ever actually made a difference in their business. Key things though is it does generate exposure, and it does increase traffic and other stuff like that, so you get some sort of side benefits. But most people cannot actually link social media with any sort of tangible benefit. And again, this is sort of going back to get anything out of social media, you have to spend time on it. And so again, this is going back to that same survey. Apologize, I'm over-reliant on it, but there's very little information out there on use of social media. What you'll actually see is, right here, is people who report actually getting something out of social media. And you realize that to even get 70% of people saying they got something out of it, they're using at least 40 plus hours a week. And so it basically skyrockets up. To even have half the people get some sort of benefit that they can track out of social media, they have to be spending 11 to 15 hours. If you break that down into a 5-day work day, you're spending at least 2 hours each day on social media to just hopefully get a 50% chance of sort of getting some sort of result. And then it is one of those things that it does take time. Again, only 20% of people who just start out using social media sees any benefit in it. After about 3 years, that jumps up to about 75%, but that's 3 years you're committing to social media. And this goes back to Martin's survey of archaeologists. And so this is what holds back most IT managers in archaeology or heritage from using some sort of new, internet, any sort of IT stuff. And you'll see the number one thing is cost. That is what holds back most archaeologists from trying new things whether it be a new program, a new computer, a smartphone, or anything, it's going to be costs. And that's just it. Social media costs. It costs you a lot of time. Switching over to something that also is a little more personal cost is if you use social media as an individual outside of an organization, you're being yourself and there's ramifications. This is Chris, and he was he still is a blogger in archaeology. He was fired for his blog. He was fired for posting information that was freely available online about a project he was doing, even though he gathered that information off the website of the company he was doing the project for. So it was already online, he was simply putting in a blog, and they fired him for it. I should also say he did commercial archaeology in the States, where he was on, I guess we could call it here a zero hours contract, where they didn't actually need to give a reason why they fired him, but they did tell him it was about blogging. It does have a happy ending though. He got a job within a day. Mainly because of Twitter. So it does help, but there's the personal cost of when you're an archaeologist and you're trying to do social media and you're trying to reach out, is if it's not approved, there could be ramifications. And so that's sort of the barriers I see. Again, I'm stealing this off of, this is actually Chris, the guy who got fired, but this is his blog right here. And this is what holds back most people from doing social media. Most people quit right about somewhere in here. People get online, they do Twitter for a little while, they do Facebook for a little while, they do a blog for a couple of months, so forth. And very few people actually reach this point. And that's just because before you get to that point, you'll see it's a whole year. He blogged for an entire year before he even got a big boost in numbers. So there is a payoff in the end, but you have to wait a very long time to see it. And I'd just like to say that I shouldn't say it's all doom and gloom, that there are some benefits to social media, and there is a lot of benefits to being online in archaeology. So if you were to look over on the side there, that is over the last 90 days, the top views of these articles on these journals. In that same 90 days, my blog got 17,000 unique visitors. So, and then again, like John Hawks, who's a biological anthropologist, he has 16,000 people following his blog just through Google Reader. It's probably much, much higher than that. Another great example would be African Burial Grounds, which is in New York. It's through the National Park Service in the States. It has 62,000 Twitter followers. And I should say that that's just a number, but what they actually do online is quite amazing. But they do spend a ridiculous amount of time to see 11,000 tweets. They're on there all the time. And if you've ever followed them, they're excellent people to follow on Twitter. They interact, they have conversations. If you follow them, most of what you see is, oh, thank you so much, this has opened my eyes. I would actually say that they're a great, great qualitative, instead of just looking at numbers, example, if you're ever to go see them. So there is really good ways to connect with people, and it is worth it in the end. And I should also say that it really does facilitate a lot of stuff where you can sort of meet and interact with people, and you've taken out that locational aspect. You don't have to come to a place to talk to someone and do a project. Heritage Business Journal is an example of a blog that does just about CRM business around the world. Most of the contributors have never actually met each other. Actually, almost none of them have. So you also have Wikipedia, WikiLoot. So you are getting a lot of benefit from being online, and you're doing that. The problem with this sort of thing is, how many conversations can you have? How many friends can you have? I know on Facebook people can have 5,000 or something, whatever the limit is, but how many meaningful relationships can you actually have with social media? And see, that's the thing is, we kind of say, oh, you can get 10,000 followers, but how many of those are you actually interacting with? How many are you actually, making a difference to? And that's the problem is, to make a difference, you have to listen. And so this is sort of my summing up. This is that famous cartoon where it's on the internet, no one knows your dog. With social media, everyone knows your dog. With social media, you can't you can't really hide, and you have to be out there. And so it does facilitate lots of interactions, but there's quite a few barriers to it. I'd say, it's already been mentioned, time equals money. And for individuals, for archaeologists trying to reach out outside of organizations, you're doing that on your own with possible ramifications for your work. And it does help you create conversations, but at a certain point, you can only have so many conversations. And so that is what I flagged up. And I should also end on a positive note, definitely advantages.